as a young entrepreneur. Just wanted to make money, right? That 1998, that year when I made $500,000 and my goal was 50, I used to write down how much I made every week on my hand.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the How Did It Happen podcast. I am Mike, your host, of course, and I'm so happy to have you here as I am with every episode. And before I get started with today's amazing guest, I just want to let you know that my book, Ownership: How Getting Selfish Got Me Unstuck, is available now on Amazon or on my website at mikemalatesta.com. If you feel like giving it a read or you want to test drive it, there is a free chapter on the website on the book tab. And I'd love to hear what you think. If you like the book, tell me what you like about it. And if you don't like the book, tell me what you don't like about it. And I'll see if I can do better next time. So again, that book is available now on Amazon or on my website. So now, as I do with every episode, I have an amazing success story to share with you. I've got Joe Valley on the show. Joe, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Mike. Good to be here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. And I'll tell you why you should be looking forward to it as well. Joe Valley is a best-selling author, entrepreneur, investor, guest speaker, and much more. After building, buying, or selling a half dozen of his own companies, which is amazing, Joe, by the way, Joe helped build one of the leading online-focused M&A advisory firms in the world. Now, after facilitating nearly $500 million in exits, that's dollars, Joe has written the best-selling book, The Exitpreneur's Playbook, to help online business owners get the maximum value and best deal structure when they seek their own incredible exit. Over the past 9 years, Joe has mentored thousands of online entrepreneurs whose goal is to achieve their own eventual exit. He is a certified mergers and acquisitions professional and a frequent guest expert in mastermind groups, on podcasts, and at events for entrepreneurs worldwide. Joe's book, The Exitpreneur's Playbook, How to Sell Your Online Business for Top Dollar, shares real-life stories of successful and failed exits and teaches readers how to reverse engineer a pathway to their own eventual exit. Joe is also the podcast creator and host of the Quiet Light podcast, which can be found wherever you get your podcasts. And you can buy Joe's book on Amazon. You can connect with him on LinkedIn, and you can learn more about him at www.exitpreneur.io and at www.QuietLight.com. So Joe, let's get going here. I start every show with the same simple question. How did it happen for you?
Great question. Very simple question, yet complicated as well. Thank you for that nice intro, by the way. And everybody buy his book. It's great. You've got to pick it up. You've got to read it. Best thing you could do is learn from others and their mistakes and successes. I love the fact that there's some failures in there as well. I think that's key to good reading. So for me, man, I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Even as a little kid, I had a worm farm out in front of my house. I used to go out with a flashlight at night and get the night crawlers and then put them in a dirt box in the basement and sell them to fishermen. I lived on Central Street. That was very location specific and beneficial for me where I grew up. But the big moment I remember when I decided to jump ship and really truly become an entrepreneur as an adult, I was 29 years old. I guess still a kid in many ways, but I was working for a company. I started in 1994 at a company where I was employee number 34. And that year we did 17 million in revenue. And by the end of 97, I think we did 102 million in revenue. So it was incredible, rapid growth and a lot of entrepreneurship within the company for myself and for everybody around me. And I used to love being the first in and the last to leave in terms of the non-salespeople on the call center floor. And it was amazing. And I couldn't imagine working anywhere else. But at one point, it just got to a point where I felt like a worker bee, a worker ant, and it was just people lining up to get into work and eventually leaving on time instead of passionately staying until the very last moment the lights went out. So I jumped ship. To be honest with you, Mike, I resigned before I would have gotten fired. To be honest with you, I'm on the personality scale. I'm a red, which means I'm opinionated, driven, get to the point. Come on, get to the point. Get to the point. Get to the point, kind of guy. And not a fan of seeing people get promoted to their level of incompetence, which happened at the company I was at. So I bailed, started my own media buying agency in the fall of 1997. My goal was to make $50,000 in 1998, and I made $500,000. So entrepreneurship was good to me and has continued to be good to me, even though there have been many years where I've been excited for the carry forward tax loss that I've had. And that's part of entrepreneurship as well. Those great successes and at times where there's been some epic failures as well. My current position with Quiet Light as a partner here, Mark Doust is the original founder. I was employee number 4. I sold my company through Quiet Light. Then I joined the team. There were 4 of us at that time. I simply made myself invaluable to the point where I was generating in some years 70% of the revenue for the company. And not too long after joining, Mark and I decided to become partners. We now have 17 advisors doing well over 8 figures in revenue. We'll close $250 million in total transactions this year. And it just continues to grow. The challenge now, Mike, is to control the beast. Make sure we're not growing to our own level of incompetence and growing slow and smart versus just, hiring like crazy. We don't want to make that mistake that I saw made so many years ago.
Sure. And that level of incompetence thing, Joe, in that first company, were there, I guess what I want to know, a couple of things. One, was it over the period of time, different leadership came along and, they weren't sort of aligned with the way you think, or was it where, the people that you originally signed up with, one of 34, just the business just outgrew their competency and you thought you could do it better? I guess what?
The people that were there originally, and maybe they were of the 34, there were, let's say 7 or 8 that rose up through the ranks, including myself. And a couple of them really were truly, I think, promoted beyond their level of competence. They were very good at many, many things. They were smart, intelligent, driven, successful people. But then, given the wheel of the ship and started steering it in directions that just didn't make sense, I had to bail. And honestly, I was young, I was cocky, I was vocal, and not always in the best political way, and made it known that one person in particular should not be in the role that they're in, and that person was the second employee of the company, and was there long after I left. Let's put it that way.
And was there, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but was there some feeling inside of you where you were like, I should have that role as opposed to this person, and that sort of contributed to how you were feeling?
Yeah. In many ways, there was a time where we had a company event, and it wasn't this particular person, but somebody else that I work with that was chosen to be up on stage and talk to the entire company. And all I did was sit in the audience and think, God damn it, I should be there talking. I should be talking to that crew, which, it wasn't right for me at the time, which is fine. And that particular individual, again, very successful, driven entrepreneur as well. Most people that were of that 7 and 8, 9, 10 people eventually jumped ship and went and started their own company, very successful entrepreneurs in their own right. But it was always in me to be the leader of my own company, to steer my own ship. And when I've not been in that role, it's been unfulfilling, I guess. I can say.
I like how you connected where you are with Quiet Light to that experience too, because at least in my experience, the real world is something like this. As companies grow, particularly if they grow a lot, you run into a lot of, is this person or these people the right person or team to lead the organization? And there's always a lot of thoughts about that throughout the organization. Everyone's got their opinions, sort of thing. But there's also this reflective thing that the leadership team is going through, where they're kind of like, I wonder if I am, there's like this introspection thing. And then having people like you who can be, vocal, as you said, and opinionated about things. It's the leaders either got to be really confident that that we're going in this direction and it's a good direction, or it can completely throw them off, Joe, where they like, oh, Joe doesn't think, I'm doing a good job. So I wonder if I am doing a good job.
Yeah, it's all about communication. And interestingly enough, what I've learned lately, how to communicate with different types of personalities. And that's through a personality profile that myself, my partner, and the executive team have taken. And actually, my wife and I did it as well. I've learned how to communicate better with my wife and her with me because of understanding her personality through a personality test that was done. Really interesting. But in regards to, people being promoted or promoting themselves in many cases as entrepreneurs, like we are, to their own level of incompetence, yet we have to realize that as much ourselves as about our executives that are supporting our company and our growth. And that's, am I the right fit to take this company from 1 million to 10, or 10 to 20, or 20 to 100 million, right? I think there's completely different people that should be in those seats. I can take my business partner and I can take our company from, the million in revenue that we were doing back in 2012 to, 20 million in revenue, 25, 30. Are we the right people to take it to 100 million? I'm not sure, to be honest with you. So we've got to be honest with ourselves about that. And that's what I would encourage every entrepreneur. Don't have the vision that you are the next Zuckerberg, right? Be okay with what you're really good at and what makes you happy. Just because someone else is doing 50 million in revenue doesn't mean you should be dissatisfied with 5, because you've got a different life than they do. And you might be happier than they are. I was talking to a friend of mine this morning that has been on my podcast. I sold a business for him, sold him many businesses. I think I've sold 2 or 3 of his. His goal was to be a unicorn, have $1 billion valuation. Not too much later, he changed that to 100 million. Not too much later, we're having a conversation about how he really doesn't enjoy the CEO role and reporting to investors and dealing with all-day meetings. He doesn't like that. And for a couple of days, he stepped out of that and really focused on what he loves, which is marketing. And now he's going, you know what? I'm going to sell. I'm going to be gone long before that $100 million exit. I need to just start focusing on things that I love and be happy and not worry about just hitting a number for the sake of being able to say I hit a number. Because that's really what's most important, is being happy.
And I completely agree with you now. Earlier in my career, I would have argued against that, because I would have said, well, I'll be happy when the goal's met, or it's sort of like one of those people who's like, I'll sleep when I'm dead, kind of thing. I'll be happy when the goal's met. The problem is the goal keeps getting pushed down the line. And as the time ticks by and the goal's not achieved and not even being close to being achieved, you start to feel really bad about yourself. And you think, there's no way I'll ever be happy, because I can't even get this one, simple goal achieved. And
you are so on the mark there, and that's a personality thing for many entrepreneurs, is, setting this really hard to attain goal and then never being happy because you haven't achieved it yet. You're marching towards it maybe, but not at the pace you wanted to. And you're a great success just by being an entrepreneur. Most fail. If you've got a business that supports you and your family, you're already winning. You should not be miserable because you haven't achieved this, lofty goal. You should be happy. I know exactly what you're talking about, because that's something I've dealt with recently with, my book launch. We talked about that with your book. I set some goals, and it was some of them were lofty, and when I didn't hit them right away, I was so disappointed with myself. I was kind of bummed out, which is ridiculous because I've got a bestseller that hit the bestseller list in 7 different categories. I've sold more books than most entrepreneurs ever sell in a lifetime. Shouldn't I be happy?
Right.
Yeah, I should be. So you got to set goals that not are unachievable, but I think first of all, set some goals. Most entrepreneurs, unfortunately, don't write down their goals. First down, set some goals. Be very specific with, dollars in revenue that you want to achieve, or an exit goal in dollars that you want to achieve, a date that you're going to achieve these things by, and then, how you want to feel when you achieve them, because we're driven by emotions, and we all have really hard days, weeks, months, and sometimes years as entrepreneurs. Without a clear written down goal, it's hard to get over those tough days, weeks, months, and years. And you're more likely to succeed, at least 50% more likely, I think, are the stats, if you actually have written goals and revisit them on a regular basis.
Yeah. And I would add, so a couple of things. One, I believe in that for sure. Two, that how you feel at the end, that's not something I do. So I'm going to incorporate that, because I feel like that's a missing component.
I got it from my business coach,
Okay.
David Wood, from Focus.ceo, and he's always pushing the feeling part of it. It's and what I have is dollars, date, and feeling. I'm always combining those 3 different things when it's coming to my business goals. And when I'm working with clients who are entrepreneurs that want to exit their business and have their own incredible exit or eventual incredible exit, I want them to write down dollars, date, and feeling. I will sell my business for $5 million in Q1 of 2023. And when I do, I will feel unburdened because I'm out of debt. My kids' college is paid for, and I get to spend more time with my family. It's that feeling part of it, I think, that is so critically important to sort of sum it all up.
And I think I wrote that down because I definitely am going to add that is a keeper. And then one other thing that I think has worked for me, and it may not be applicable in an exit scenario, but sharing my goals with other people who can help me achieve them. I know, like, for a long time, I had goals, but nobody knew them. I was the only one who knew them. Mm-hmm. And they were specific and all that, but what I missed, like completely missed, was that I can't accomplish the goal on my own. So if nobody else knows that it's a goal, one, they can't help me. And two, to get back to like what an entrepreneur can do to him or herself, is I could just push it down the road as far as I wanted. Like, didn't accomplish it, push it down the road. Nobody knew, right? But when somebody knows, because even if I had specific dates and stuff, I could push those down the road. But if someone else knows my specific dates and knows what the outcome is going to be, and I love that, knows the feeling too, they're going to help me. They are going to help me achieve that, I feel.
And hold you accountable and ask you about it. It's sometimes it's a very private goal. If I have a goal to exit my business, I'm not going to share the dollars with friends. So some of those things are hard to share. But talking about it when you're going to do it, and I encourage everyone to do this, and especially in terms of my world and eventually exiting their business, because they learn so much and they get training along the way to how to build a more valuable business. And by setting that goal and building more valuable business, they actually start to enjoy it a little bit more than they might have in the past. And when they've hit that goal in terms of the ability to exit for $5, $10, $50 million, add or subtract zeros to fit your own goals, they can then move that goalpost, down a little bit and put it off for another year if they're really happy and enjoying it. But they wouldn't be happy and enjoying it if they hadn't written that goal down in the first place, in my view.
I'm totally in agreement on that. And I guess the one thing as you just said that last thing, Joe, I thought to myself, okay, but don't fool yourself. If you're going to take the goal down because you're going to say, I'm happier not having achieved it, make sure that's the truth. Because otherwise you could be giving yourself a pass. Like, I'm going to pretend that I'm happier, not breaking through to this level that I probably am capable of. So I just want to, I would say, be sure. And that's totally fine, but be sure.
Yeah. And I'm not talking about not achieving. I'm talking about achieving it, or you've got the ability to say, all right, I'm good. I'm going to sell. I'm going to exit. My business is worth 5 million. But you know what? I actually want 7.5. So based upon what I know now and the growth rate that I have and how this whole thing about selling works, I'm going to wait another 9 months because my growth is that big and that crazy. I'm going to hold off 9 months and then I'm going to sell. So that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about you set a goal to exit for $5 million and your, value is only at 3 million.
And you say you're happy.
And you say you're happy. And the key to that is understanding how to reverse engineer a pathway to a goal, right? I was on a podcast not too long ago where the host said, her goal is to be a unicorn as well. She wanted to sell her business for or have $1 billion valuation. And we didn't get into it on the podcast. We got, after we stopped recording, it was, well, okay, what's it going to take to get there? Right? Let's reverse engineer a path to that. How much revenue do you need to be doing? How much recurring revenue do you need to have? How much subscription revenue? How big do you want to be or have to be in order to get that kind of valuation? And then you've got to figure out, is that the life you really want? Right? I don't want that, right? I don't want a $1 billion company and all the responsibility that comes with it, unless I'm just on the board of directors and have lots of sway. That's about all I want to do, right? So you've got to, I think if you're going to set that goal, one of the key things to it is then reverse engineer a path to it. For instance, if you want to sell for $5 million, what are things selling for now? What's the multiple of sellers' discretionary earnings that things are selling for? What is sellers' discretionary earnings? So you know how close or how far you are from that goal. So if you're, and even if it's just to hit a certain amount of revenue and you know where you are today, you can look at your historic growth rate and say, okay, well, I'm growing 25% year over year. I should hit that in 2.7 years. My goal is to hit that in 2 years. How much more growth do I have to have in order to achieve that goal? How am I going to achieve that growth? And really have a plan around that. You can't just write it down and then do the same thing. That's kind of just a wish and a prayer. You've got to really get in details on the goals and how to get there. Reverse engineer a path to it, in other words.
I think that's really smart, Joe, because people get, but this unicorn thing, people get enamored with this idea, right? Because you read about these unicorn things, whether it's Zuckerberg or Instagram or, you read about the ones that supposedly happen that way. But here's what you don't read about. Even if it's a fantastic outcome, you don't read about what did I give up in order to get that, right? Because you typically don't get that just growing your business and on your own, right? You bring in investors and they have demands, they have requirements, and it changes. You really have to know what you want out of it. If you really want that, I love your reverse engineering thing, because that's going to show somebody that, it's not just going to be hard work and, happy customers that are going to get you to $1 billion valuation. You have to have a significant story of growth, and you have to have money in order to prove that growth story works. And to get the money, you give up something.
Yeah. And the funny thing about goals is they're written down and you write them down. And sometimes you're in a bad mood one day and a better mood the other. Sometimes you love what you're doing. Sometimes you're just totally burnt out.
Right.
And so if you've got a goal written down, and as you're working through all of these different days, weeks, and months where you're trying to figure out your own eventual exit or your own eventual role within your company, you can shift that still. I've done it, right? I've got my goals written down, Mike, but I think I'm changing them. Not because I'm not able to achieve those goals. I'm marching towards being able to achieve those goals. But what I'm thinking now is, my goals are written down. I'll be as specific as I can. My goals are written down to exit my business within, for a certain dollar amount at a certain time. That's, I guess, as specific as I can. And I've even got the deal structure and terms written down in terms of my exit. And I'm not the majority owner. Mark owns 60, I own 40. So it might just be me. If he wants to stick around, that's fine too. But this is my own personal goal. I've grown since I wrote that goal down. I can achieve those goals based upon the timeline and the growth that I have within my organization. But I've learned a lot since then, because I've been talking about goals with other 8-figure entrepreneurs. And now I'm thinking, maybe I'll exit without exiting, and maybe I'll just replace myself. Mark and I will elevate ourselves to the board of directors, and we'll have a C-suite executive team that will do the work. And then we'll have the amazing team of advisors that we have, which are the brokers. But I'll exit without exiting. I'll continue to run the company from the board level status, but not on a day-to-day basis. And I can shift that goal, what I've written down, because I've grown as well. And I've learned, and I've talked with other entrepreneurs like yourself that have thrown out other possibilities and other ideas. And it comes from writing the goal down, and it comes from having others hold me accountable, because I've talked to others about it. Right. So it's not, you write it down, you tell others, and if you choose not to exit, or you don't hit that goal, that you're a total failure. You can shift and maneuver it. Of course, if you set the goal for 5 million and you're only at 3 million, you say, oh no, I've changed my mind. I only want to exit for 3 million. That's not achieving your goal. Right. Sometimes that's making a life decision to be happy and just get the hell out, which sometimes we just have to do as entrepreneurs. I don't know if you've ever done it. I've done it.
Oh, yeah. How do you want to feel when you didn't tell us that part?
I do want to feel unburdened of the responsibility and the role that I have within my organization. I want to be completely at peace financially, and it's FU money, if you will. Yeah. I just need to sleep. This is part of the entrepreneurial life. Many of us, anyway, that you go to sleep, you wake up in the middle of the night, your mind's immediately racing. So I just, when I'm on vacation, when I'm away on vacation, I sleep like a baby. I turn my phone off. I ignore all emails. Nothing happens that makes me think in the middle of the night. And that's a big part of how I want to feel, is that maybe that's just a boring life, but I'm ready for an extended break, or a shift, if you will.
Yeah. Well, I love the word shift. It's actually in the title of my book, because I feel like shifts are so important for entrepreneurs, and whether the shift is one that you voluntarily take, or whether it's one that, other people look and say, hey, Joe, you gotta, move this way or this way. It's really important, because, what got you, what do they say? What got you here won't get you there sometimes. Yeah. And we get so stuck in what got us here that you think, well, I'm just going to do more of that, and that'll get me, where I want to be. And when it doesn't happen, you say, I'm going to do more of it. And
yeah, totally agree. Totally. And I love the word shift as well, in the title of your book. And, I'm constantly talking to people, entrepreneurs, about shifting their mindset from entrepreneur to exitpreneur. Yeah. Because the vast majority of the money that most entrepreneurs make comes the day that they sell their business. And once they learn that and experience it, the next time they start a business, they're already thinking about that eventual exit. And so it's a simple shift. Not that you're going to be in the grind every day. That's what most of us, when we started as entrepreneurs, we're just grinding it out every day with no end in sight.
Right.
And for me, early on, Mike, a couple of my businesses just sort of faded away because I got tired of them and I moved on to something else instead of selling them. And so that mind shift that you've got, that entrepreneurial mind shift from entrepreneur to exitpreneur, I think is critically important as well.
So I have two questions before I want to dig in deep on your book and your work. The first is, you mentioned the personality profiles, and I'm wondering which one you use, or which is your favorite and why.
It was in this case, it was a DISC profile. It's our consultant that we have as a company that has a subscription to it. And we talked with him about a new COO and who we need, had some thoughts. And then myself and 3 other executives took it. And now we understand how to communicate with each other better. And my personality is exactly what I thought. And then the other is a book, if people want to pick it up, and that is Surrounded by Idiots. Great title. But it's much the same. It talks about the 4 different personality types in colors, as does the results of DISC profile. It's red, blue, green, and yellow. And now my wife will say, he's a red. It's okay. He's a red. And I know that when she's asking me questions, She's a blue. She needs all the details. She's not questioning my ability. She's just asking me questions to get detail because that's her personality. Whereas I'm like, I don't need the detail. I just have this idea. Let's go. Totally different personalities.
Yeah.
My CMO needs some praise according to the results of the profile. I need to be, direct with him, but at the same time, lavish some praise on him and appreciation. And in some ways, sometimes do it publicly, making sure the whole team knows what this individual did, because that's what kind of drives him. So those are the two different ones that I like.
Well, thanks for sharing that, because it's so important to have a common language or a common understanding with your colleagues. It's if you want to build a good culture in a business, understand each other first, because if you don't understand each other, the message that makes perfect sense to you, like sort of what you were talking about in your first, job, first position, what makes perfect sense to you, could very well alienate someone else, the way you say it, the way you put it, the way you expect them to react to it, all of those things. And just that little thing, but of knowing, and then, being able to communicate in a way that resonates with everybody, you just tweak stuff, and then all of a sudden things work better than when you were jamming it down thinking, why don't they get it? Well, they don't think the same way that I do. They don't.
Yeah. The book, Surrounded by Idiots is the easiest one to pick up.
Okay.
My 20-year-old has read it. My wife has read it. I've read it. Trying to get my 18-year-old to read it, but he skimmed it.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, at least you exposed him to it. At one point, he may open it further. And then I wanted to go back a little bit to your worm-preneur days. Like what else was happening in your life as you were coming up, Joe? What was life like for you? Because I want to get a sense of how you developed into the person you've already described yourself to be.
Well, I grew up in Maine, and that worm farm that I created I think it was 9 or 10 years old when I did it. My dad was kind enough to let me put a sign out on the tree out in front that everybody driving by would say, worms for sale, night crawlers for sale, and have a worm farm in the basement of our house. Thank you, Dad. Appreciate that. But I was also mowing lawns. I was a paper boy. I was doing all sorts of things. I dug ditches on the weekends for $3 an hour, Mike, for one individual that had work for me every weekend. And trying to think about, when I got to college, I had a job. I remember having a job, and that, being instructed on how to put paper in the trash can, not crumpled up, just put it in flat, unwrinkled, so it will take up less space versus just crumpling it up. And that level of detail and instruction nauseated the hell out of me. I just couldn't handle it. And with every passing job, with every passing entrepreneur adventure that I had, I learned more of what I didn't want to do than what I really wanted to do. And that's important. I went to college at Northeastern University, where they have a co-op program. You go to school for 3 months, out to work for 3 months or 6 months. And I worked at Scudder Funds, a mutual fund company, got my Series 6 and 63 in Massachusetts. Used to, wear a suit to work with an empty briefcase, in my hand, and thought I was important for about, 2 months, and then realized how much I hated it. I went to work for a fast food fried chicken and biscuit company called Cajun Joe's Fried Chicken and Biscuits in Brighton, Massachusetts. When I was in college as an assistant manager, as part of my entrepreneur program, part of the co-op program. And when I was working there, this guy, Michael Hackle, walked in. I didn't know his name at the time, but he had jeans, blue collared shirt on, beat up leather jacket, beat up briefcase. And he was offering restaurant delivery services. This was back in, I want to say 87. And his company was called Dining In, and they used to deliver food for restaurants. They had drivers, in tuxedos delivering food. So why he came into Cajun Joe's is beyond me. But I was so in love with the idea that when he left, I went out back and said to the owner, I said, "This guy Mike just came in. This is his concept. It's pretty cool." He goes, "Yeah, it is cool." I said, "I want to do it." And immediately, I didn't have a plan. Like, I just said, "I want to do it." And this guy's name was Dick, and he said, I'll fund you. Let's go." Just like that. That's the entrepreneurial adventure. You don't have to know exactly what you're going to do, You just gotta, like, I've never had a business plan. I went to school for business, but I've never had a business. Have you ever had a business plan?
I did have a business plan when I went to the banks
You had to get some
at
money, so you
first.
had to
Yeah, I
do
had to
it.
get some money. Yeah.
Yeah. So you did it for them, not necessarily for you. I've never had lending or funding from anybody, so I never had a business plan. If I had put it together, that'd be the hardest exercise that I've probably done in 23 years of entrepreneurship. But we did it. He gave me some money, cleaned out the basement of the restaurant, and started a company called The Wrong Number. My market was a little different than dining ins. They were high-end restaurants. Mine was to college students. And I did that for a good 6 to 8 months, working 60 hours a week while a full-time student before shutting it down because it was just too crazy. But I ended up going to work for Dining In, and I tell my kids today that I was an original door dasher because my oldest one is a door dasher. Because Dining In sold to Grubhub eventually.
Oh, they did. Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering if they would have gone out of business before Grubhub came along. But...
Nope. Sold out. Sold to Grubhub. They went from Boston, Chicago, New York, and then eventually sold.
So just imagine where you could have been if you stuck with it.
Happy where I am.
Right.
Because if I'd stuck with it, I would have promoted myself to my own level of incompetence, bringing it back full circle. Yeah. That's a lot of tech, a lot of people, a lot of it's just stuff that wasn't my strength at the time. Michael offered me, after I graduated from college, he wanted me to come in and run the Boston location. And I knew it wasn't right for me because he was a hard guy to work for. Good guy, but hard guy. And so I told him my number, hoping he would say no. And he said, I can afford that, but how can I ever incentivize you after that? So he said no. I said no by giving him a silly number, and he said no too. But it's worked out okay for him.
And when you were going into college, Joe, coming out of high school, did you have an idea of, I don't know what your parents did, but did you have an idea of what you wanted to do? Did you know you wanted to continue to be an entrepreneur? Is that why Northeastern was the program you selected? What was going on then?
Yeah, there weren't really any entrepreneurship programs back then in terms of colleges. It wasn't something you could study. So no, I just went to school for business.
Okay.
Both my folks were employees for the state of Maine, nice steady jobs with unions and things of that nature. My goal was just to leave the state. All right. I grew up in Maine, loved it. Great place to visit, great place to live, still have friends there. But at that time I wanted to get the hell out, went to Boston, went to college there for business, and just needed to try a lot of different things. Just like in the entrepreneur world, you got to try a lot of different things until you hit the right thing. In my career growing up, I tried a lot of different things. I didn't have that first real job, Mike, until I was 29. I tried so many different things between college and hitting that role at Talk America, that company where I was employee number 34. And interestingly enough, that first year when they did 17 million, the owner made $5 million. When we did 102 million, the year I left, he lost $3 million. So, size isn't, large size isn't always, bigger is not always better. And I learned that early on as well.
Yeah. The equation is, profit equals revenue minus expense, not revenue minus expense equals profit. So decide what the profit is going to be, then figure out the scale of the business.
Somebody who studied profit first right there.
Yeah. So as you were going through that, I was thinking to myself, okay, so many people now are telling young people and even older people, to find your passion, and just, if you find your passion, you'll never work a day in your life, or whatever comes after that, Joe. And it sounded like to me, as you were going through all of those machinations of what you tried, I wondered, well, it doesn't sound like to me, I wondered as you were doing that, what is your feeling about that advice?
Yeah, it's interesting because when I was a kid, or maybe not a kid, I don't know when the book came out, Do What You Love and the Money Will Follow. The book is Do What You Love and the Money Will Follow. And I think about my own kids at this point, and I just want them to be happy first. Right. And then, I want them to obviously be able to support themselves, being, financially satisfied, I guess, will lead to some happiness. You don't want to, be delivering pizza and be happy because you won't be able to pay rent, support a family eventually. Yeah. But if you going to that path in terms of doing what you love, it's not easy for somebody, that concept is you love cutting hair. You love being a hairstylist. You love owning a small retail store in a small town. So you get to know everybody. You love politics. You love insurance, right? I think that's too narrow. I think it needs to be broadened to, do you love helping people, right? And finding a niche where you can help as many people as possible. And I bring that up because for me, early on, it was all about making money. As a young entrepreneur, just wanted to make money, right? That 1998, that year when I made $500,000 and my goal was 50, I used to write down how much I made every week on my hand. Looked bad. And it was so mind-boggling to him because in 5 weeks I made what he made in a year, and he just didn't understand what the hell I was doing. I thought I was selling drugs or something. Yeah. But then it was all about making money. Now it's how many people can I reach? How many people can I help? Can I, share a message with them that's going to have a positive impact on their business, their life, their family? And the more I do that as an entrepreneur, because that's what I love, strangely enough, Mike, the more my business grows. So I now am in the perfect business where the more people I can truly help with no agenda. And that's the weird thing about Quiet Light, the M&A firm that I run, this specific to online entrepreneurs. Most people think, oh, I don't want to deal with a broker. I don't want to talk to a broker. I'm not ready to talk to a broker. And I had that experience back in 2010 when I was selling my last e-commerce business. I talked to 3 different brokerage firms. There weren't many back then. Now there's more, but 3 that were specific to online space. 2 were just trying to reach through their phone to get their hooks into me for a commission. The 3rd was Mark at Quiet Light, who had my best interest in mind. We had 2 conversations. The second one was an analysis of my P&L. And he said, look, Joe, he said, you're coming back strong after the Great Recession. If you wait another 6 months, you're going to make X amount more. And it was, over 6 figures more. And I was like, this guy's telling me to go away? This is brilliant. I love this guy. And I did. I waited and came back. And that approach is different. And it's focused on helping as many people as possible through conversations, which can be tiring. There's a lot of conversations, as I told you before. Sure. We started hitting record here, and I'll tell you why in a minute, folks. But I think when you shift your mindset as an entrepreneur from making as much money as possible to helping as much as possible, whether that's, helping people look great because you're a hairstylist, or helping people get fit because you're a personal trainer, or helping people build a better business because you're a coach. The more you can help, the more it's going to come back to you in terms of building your own business brand and reputation. And the reason I talked about those one-on-one conversations, can be exhausting is that you end up repeating the same thing over and over again. And that's why I think maybe you've written a book. That's why I've written a book, because we want to help as many people as possible. I didn't write the book to inflate my ego. I didn't write the book because I have a course to sell or anything like that. And we talked before we had recorded, maybe I didn't have a plan. Yeah. I wrote it because I've said the same thing over and over 8,000 times to individuals one-on-one. And now I can reach a lot more people with a lot more detail, something that they can refer back to. And it's that continuing to help and be a good human versus I just want to make more money. I have a financial goal. I just need to make more money. I just need to make more money. It's an important mind shift, I think, for an entrepreneur, from just trying to make dough to, trying to help as many people as possible. And the end result is you end up making more money.
I agree. And I would say as well, Joe, let me know how you feel about this, but I feel like clients and customers and employees and everyone else knows they can sniff out when you're in it for the money versus when you're in it for the help. When you help people first, when that's your mindset, is to help people first, at least in my experience, you're going to make way more money than the person whose mindset is, how much can I get from you right now? Because people will fall for that once, they'll fall for it twice, but they won't fall for it forever. They get tired of it. And then you know, then you're
And they
not
come
making
back,
any
then they
money.
come back around to you because you
Yeah,
offered help and guidance.
correct. And
Yeah.
I like what you said about your book too, because like you described the way your kids you consume that other book. That's the nice thing about having your book out there with all the information. If you're ready for it today, read the book today. If you're not ready for it today, it's there. If you want to skim it now and think about it, and then, you know, dig in when someone, you know, when you're ready to take that next step towards selling or whatever, then dig in there. But it's there all the time. There, you know, it's just a fabulous way to get information out to the world.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
So let's, you know, your firm, Quiet Light, is, you know, focuses on exclusively on online business owners, right? Or e-commerce
Right.
type business, which by the way,
Online businesses, SaaS content, e-commerce,
okay,
FBA, whatever it might be, agencies. Yeah.
fascinating niche. I would, although it's a pretty big niche, but fascinating niche, because I haven't come across an M&A firm that has that focus before. So it's really
Yeah.
exciting.
It wasn't real big back in 2012, funny
Okay.
enough,
Yeah.
but it's,
Now I suppose it's, yeah, becoming more.
yeah, we've grown up very steady, consistent growth and this year it's a huge leap over last year, just because of you're familiar with the aggregators and the FBA businesses, what they're doing.
So like, I know what so no, I'm going to say, why don't you explain it?
Well, an
So people know.
aggregator, they've raised money. They're very smart, well-educated, likable people who have raised a lot of money. And with that money, what they do is they buy up, in this case, FBA, fulfilled by Amazon businesses, and put it inside their own portfolio. And so the bigger they get, the higher the multiple becomes. They'll buy it at 3 times. And because of the size of their portfolio, it immediately becomes worth 10, or in some cases 15.
Right.
And they've just done in, let's say, 3 years what we at Quiet Light have been trying to do since the firm was founded in 2007, which is, you know, get it through people's heads as entrepreneurs that you have a sellable business and that you can sell it someday. There's been so much publication around FBA aggregators that everybody that runs an online business, whether it's FBA, straight up e-commerce, SaaS content, service agencies, they're all realizing, oh, wait a minute, I actually have a sellable asset here. I think I need to talk to Quiet Light or whoever they might want to talk to. It's been interesting. It's been good. I still feel like we're at the tip of the iceberg. I think that you know, what we do is so critical. It's not for everybody. Some people are going to go off and do it on their own, and the book will help them with that, and that's okay, right? Here to help. But you know, the online space is just going to continue to grow, and that means, you know, unless we totally screw up, we're going to continue to grow. The challenge is growing at our pace, making sure that we're happy with what we're doing in our lives, and serving, you know, our clients and helping, and protecting our team as well. It's good challenges, good problems to focus on.
And while you got, yeah, it's a very wide opportunity in front of you too, I would say, for sure. And for the people that are starting these businesses. I mean, like it gives me like shivers when I hear somebody say they're going to wind down their business, Joe. I said, what do you mean you're going to wind down your business? Well, I'm going to retire. I'm going to wind down the business and everything.
Yeah, I did it.
You don't, yeah.
I did it. I didn't know, you know.
Yeah.
I wanted that first media buying agency that I started and made $500,000 in the first year. I wound it down.
Yeah.
Because it was me. It was my brand and reputation, but not really. I had a staff. I just wound it down till I had one, and then eventually just had that one buying media for my own products. And then when I sold those businesses, those products, you know, I'd give her a huge bonus and we parted ways. Shouldn't have done that. There were people that, you know, were doing the same thing I did that eventually sold. So
yeah, it's not about what you're extracting from the business every paycheck or every year or whatever. It's what the value you're building inside of the business. That's where the big payoff comes.
That's where the value, especially with the world that I'm in, the online world, where it's, you know, growing like crazy, and doubly especially with physical product e-commerce businesses, because it takes so much working capital to keep up with inventory demands. Sure. You know, and so your cash flow is an awful lot lower than what your net profit or discretionary earnings shows, because you have so much money tied up in inventory. And so I've seen people, you know, that have grown a business from, zero to, $1.5 million in 24 months, but they didn't really get to take any money out of the business because they kept funding inventory. And then they sold for $1 million. And that's when they got paid for the business.
Right.
There's mathematically, statistically, you make at least 50% of the money that you ever make in these types of businesses the day that you sell. Once the entrepreneur understands that, they'll make that mind shift, that owner shift, that exitpreneur shift, and start to think like an exitpreneur, where they're eventually going to sell their business. They'll set those goals, reverse engineer path to them, and work through those harder days with that end goal in mind.
So I did forget to mention that Exitpreneur is a fantastic name for a book, Joe. So congratulations on that as well. While your firm focuses on, online M&A, the book, I'm assuming, is applicable to all types
Almost
of businesses.
all.
Okay, so
Almost all.
help us understand who's the target audience for this book, and why should they get it?
It's really the online entrepreneur, if I'm being blunt, right? Because I'm not going to tell you I know exactly how to do a valuation for a brick and mortar store. For a business that's heavy with assets, like I've got a friend of mine that owns a construction company. I don't know how to put a value on all of his, forklifts and trucks and backhoes and all of those things. That's not my area of expertise. So if somebody's running that type of business, they'll still learn from the Exitpreneur's Playbook, because it talks. If you're looking for a valuation of your business, you're not going to get that in this book. But if you're looking for what buyers want, the 4 pillars, if you're looking for, how to do an add back schedule. I mean, the most important thing when you're trying to understand the value of your own business is understanding what an add back is. Because most people think, well, my net income is only 200,000. I've got a business that's worth what, 600,000, but I pay myself 300,000. So why would I sell it for 6? Well, because your $300,000 salary is an add back.
Right.
Those little details are so critically important to all types of businesses that I think it's useful. But I've wrote it for the online entrepreneur, and it's interesting what I'm seeing, with feedback and reviews and trends and conversations, is that buyers of online businesses are reading it, so they understand the other team's sort of playbook, if you will, right? They're buying and go, okay, well, this guy didn't do it. He didn't, as you said, price his business properly because he sold it on his own, or he's listing it on his own. And he didn't do a proper add back schedule. I buy this business today for the multiple that he wants, and I'm actually getting, an extra point in instant equity because it really is worth 4 times when he's selling it for 3 because he didn't do a proper add back. Well, let me change that. So if he didn't do an add back for his cash back, right? I had a conversation with a very successful 8-figure entrepreneur a few weeks ago. It was a fireside chat. I was in an event and put 30 people, and we're literally by the fire. And he's talking about, an offer he's gotten for his business. And I started talking about details and add backs. And I said, did you do an add back for cash back? And he's, what do you mean? I get like $50,000 in cash back every month, but what do you mean? I'm like, well, you get that money because it's, advertising spend and purchases that you make through the business. It's a discount on all of that. And it's an owner benefit, even though the business is providing it to you as an owner. It's just not hitting your P&L, apparently. You need to create an add back for that. So an extra $50,000 a month, that's $600,000 a year. What multiple what's the offer on you? 10 times. Okay. That's $6 million added to the value of your business. He bought the beer from me that night, by the way. He needs to buy me many beers, but simple things like that, and understanding those little nuances, again, add or subtract zeros for whatever suits your business. But, I've got an entire section or chapter on that, where there's 3 different levels of add backs, 6 different levels below each that will apply to every entrepreneur, whether they're brick and mortar, service agency, e-commerce entrepreneur, SaaS owner, whatever it might be. And especially for buyers, the best buyers that I've sold to over and over again keep coming back because they win. When there's multiple offers, they win, even if it's not the highest price. They're just very likable, and sellers want to sell to them because they trust them. But they also are not totally fixated on the multiple because they understand what the growth of the business is. And that is for the next 3 months that the multiple is going to come right down and that they know what they can bring to the table to grow the business. And they do that, and they do it very well. And so they're not totally fixated just on the multiple.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to do that, I think, in today's marketplace.
Well, I agree. And that's where a company like yours comes in really handy, because if I'm a buyer, we can talk multiples all day long, but what I'm really concerned about is not what multiple I buy it at. I'm concerned about what it's going to mean to me.
Mm-hmm.
What it's going to mean to me, like how it's going to increase my EBITDA or how it's going to increase my whatever. And I have all kinds of things that you will never know, that I'm thinking about. But as an advisor, you can sort of help get to that and get the price up for, the person that's selling the business, because the buyer has more value than just the multiple, perhaps.
So much more economies of scale. If they've got the ability to, cut costs because they've got staff can do that, or a warehouse that they own that they don't have to outsource to.
Oh, there's all kinds of stuff.
So many things that they've got to take into account. And you have to, in today's marketplace, we've gotten year to date, look, we're talking the end of November, early December, year to date 2021, we've gotten 4.5 offers on every single listing, Mike, and 60% of them have sold at or over asking price.
Right.
And, it could be, say, well, you're not pricing them high enough, or we're pricing them right and getting a lot of eyeballs on them and interested parties negotiating the price up. If you start too high, people come in really low. If you start just right, they come in just right or higher. We've seen that time and time again. So it's a tough marketplace for buyers.
Right.
So the more you understand the seller's playbook, if you will, the better off you're going to be as a buyer, I think.
So I was on an M&A panel for the in Chicago recently, and these were, we were talking about big deals of asset heavy companies, like waste related companies, 9-figure deals. And I will tell you that a lot of the stuff that you were just talking about is the same type of advice that we were giving to people. So these weren't online things, but understanding your numbers, understanding add backs, understanding selling the future growth, like pro forma growth, understanding all of those things, it just makes such a big difference. And of course, having the right firm working with you, like your firm, for example, game changer. Like if you think you can do it on your own and outsmart, the people who kind of have all this knowledge coming in, you're not going to.
Well, that's the pitch of the aggregators, the FBA aggregators. It's, they'll hit you up with an email and we'll buy your business, pay all cash, close in 30 days, avoid the broker fee.
Yep. What
they're really doing is they're making a ton of instant equity, because if you're selling on your own and you don't understand proper add backs, or even how to do just a 3-month pro forma on a P&L, we won't go beyond 3 months, by the way, Mike.
Okay.
Because we don't.
So different. That's specific to what you're doing.
It is. It's specific to what we do, and it, year to date statistics. Again, it's been 89. It's 89 days from listing going public to it actually closing. So from listing to money changing, it's 89 days. So we'll do, in many cases, if a business is growing rapidly, we'll do a 3-month pro forma P&L. So the buyer's paying a multiple on closing. And that's really important for the seller, because if they're gaining an extra $20,000 a year in discretionary earnings over the previous year because their growth is crazy, that's $60,000 times a 3-time multiple is $180,000. That pays for college tuition, all sorts of things that you can apply those things to,
plus the fee.
And the fee. We had, you stop me if I go on too many tangents here, but we had a situation this year, right, where an entrepreneur, a female entrepreneur, bought a business with an SBA loan a few years ago, just before the pandemic, actually, just before. And the only change she did was she had more capital, so she made sure she didn't run out of inventory. So the business just exploded with growth. And because she's in the FBA space, the aggregators were hitting her up with emails and snail mails and phone calls and all this stuff. And she got an offer for $2.2 million plus inventory, 2.6 altogether. And the final offer that came to that level was from a very well-known aggregator who said, listen, this is what we do. This is the absolute best offer you're going to get for your business. This is what we do. Here's the reason why. You've got a hero SKU. It's doing 70% of your revenue, this, that, and the other thing. And she just was savvy enough and stingy enough to say, I don't know. I'm going to talk to Chuck over at Quiet Light. And she connected with Chuck. We ended up selling it for $5.5 million. An aggregator bought it. We had 7 offers. An aggregator bought it. So generally speaking, they're very good people. They're likable. They're intelligent. They're well-educated. And that's why bankers give them lots of money, and you're going to like them too. That's, their charm is part of how they got where they are, but that's what makes them dangerous as well, is that they're so likable.
And they're acting in their best interest.
Don't forget that.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's a great story to end with. That's fantastic. 2.6 to 5.5 in a short period of time. Nothing changed about the business. It's all about the advice that you got and how you positioned it and how you actually looked for the right buyers, not just the buyer that came and knocked on your door.
That's right.
Or sent you the email. Joe, this has been fantastic. How do people, I gave your stuff out at the beginning, but how do you want people to connect with you? What do you want them to do? Where do you want them to go?
I would like everyone to follow me on Twitter. I'm just starting my Twitter account, Mike. I need to be better at social media. I told you that before we hit record.
Yeah, we did. All right. What's that?
The Joe Valley. I guess that's how you say it. At the Joe Valley. Yeah, look, Joe Valley was taking people. It's not that I'm the Joe Valley and I'm that important. It's just that Joe Valley was taken. So,
I'm just surprised that the other Joe Valley didn't take the Joe Valley.
He's an artist.
Yeah.
He was not as egotistical as us entrepreneurs. Well, he's an entrepreneur too. So either Twitter, they can reach out to me on LinkedIn or hit me up at joe@quietlight.com as well.
All right. Well, Joe, thank you so much for being on the show today and sharing your wisdom and experience in your life and your goals and how you feel when you accomplish your goals. That was so cool. A ton of great stuff there. The one takeaway I would say is, no matter what business you're in, you are in that business to build value, and the value that you build needs to be maximized when you decide to get out of that business. So if you're an online business, go see Joe, connect with Joe. If you're any other type of business, connect with whomever it is that's best suited to take you through that process and make sure you get what you should get out of your life's work.
Yeah. And if you're not ready to have a conversation, pick up the Exitpreneur's Playbook or pick up Owner Mind Shift, right? Ownership. Yeah. Ownership.
Thank you
Pick
for
it up.
bringing me back in there.
These are easy things to do. Look at what Mike has done. Look what you've done. 24 companies in your life, right? You bought or something. What's the number?
Bought or sold 22. Yeah.
That's crazy. Who does that? That's a hell of a lot of experience and some incredible successes. And I imagine a few epic failures in there. So you can learn from others. And I think everybody should be buying your book and doing that.
Well, thank you so much, Joe. Same to you. Thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the How'd It Happen podcast, where we believe that success doesn't happen unless you make it happen. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you like to listen. And while you're there, please rate it and leave a comment as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts about the show, ideas for future guests, or whatever you'd like to share. And of course, you can always find me at MikeMalatesta.com. See you next time. Thanks again for listening to the How'd It Happen podcast.